You're listening to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by Referral Mortgages and Blue Panda Realty, with your hosts, Paul Stevenson, David Warren, and Greg Campbell. Let's see what's going on in the world of real estate in our nation's capital.
Yes. Hello. Hello. It's the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast. Didn't know how long I was going to go there. My name is Paul Stevenson. I'm here with only David Warren today. We'll explain why shortly. David, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. I'm doing well. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, sir. We're grinding on Thanksgiving Monday.
Yeah, I like that sweater. I didn't actually see the logo until just now, but tough season.
They might have not made the playoffs, but you still got a rep, you know?
Yeah. So my name is Paul Stevenson. I'm one of the owners of Referral Mortgages in Ottawa. I'm also a mortgage agent, and David Warren is my business partner. He is also an owner at Referral Mortgages and a mortgage agent. And for our listeners, typically Greg Campbell is with us. He's a partner at Blue Panda Realty and an expert realtor. Greg, well, let's put it this way. We had a few comments last week, and we decided that Greg's days were numbered at TOREP.
He's been talking too much.
Those loose lips he's got, they're sinking too many ships. We had someone comment say that Greg doesn't stop talking. He ends almost every sentence with but, and, or period. That was their whole comment. So we read that and we just said, you know what, Greg, you're done, bud. You're done. No, but in all honesty, Greg's a little under the weather, so we're wishing him a speedy recovery. He'll be back next week, and it's just us. But before we get into it, I just want to give a quick shout out to Northbrew, northbrew.ca. If you go to northbrew.ca, they are a great coffee sponsor. You can get 20% off of your coffee orders. That's 20. Just use the promo code podcast and you'll get 20% off your coffee order. Not first, all coffee orders. Speaking of coffee, I need it today. I don't know about you, David, but I've consumed enough turkey to kill a small horse over the last couple of days, and I'm still going. I got a few more leftovers in the fridge, and I'm not going to slow down.
Someone tells you the beef man can pack on a couple pounds of turkey.
It's turned to Turkey Man. The last couple of days, turkey tacos, turkey sandwiches, just turkey, just eating it out of the bag. I guess it's funny. We used to do. Yes, it is a bag.
Paul's an endless pit of eating.
No, I love it. I love eating. We used to hand out Tupperware containers, but then our family grew to abnormal size of humans. So now there's too much. Like, you'd have to basically invest in a Tupperware. You'd have to have what do you call those? Like a Tupperware party.
You need to own Tupperware. You need to own the company. The Stevenson should be owning Tupperware.
Stevensonware. So we do it in big, large freezer bags now. So I just have a freezer bag of turkey in my fridge, and it's fantastic. Halloween for adults.
That'll be gone today. That's not lasting much past 6 p.m. today.
No. What did you get up to though? What was your weekend like?
Good. Went up to the cottage Friday, got up around 7 p.m., 6, 7. Hadn't been up in about 5 weeks or so, and kind of so it was nice drive. The colors were beautiful up there. So was there till yesterday. Had a couple of friends were up Saturday, did a little small Friendsgiving up there, which is great. Kind of everyone baking some pies, doing the turkey, the whole nine. So it was a good time. And then back yesterday, trying to do a little work today, and but mostly try and catch up on a lot of stuff around the house that we moved, we powered through a bunch of stuff, and then our dogs got sprayed by skunks, and that left our house in disarray as we're trying to air out pillows, mattresses, order steam cleaners, and that whole.
So what's the newest remedy for skunks on dogs? Is it still tomato juice? Is that the?
No, it's like, so for washing them, we had them shaved, but it's like a peroxide Dawn, like this paste concoction, which works
Toothpaste.
pretty well. But we weren't home when they did get sprayed. They were being looked after by somebody else, and so our mattresses, our couches, our brand new couch, everything got rolled around with fresh skunk spray. So we had to the dog shave. We've been airing out the entire house, the cushions, ordered a carpet cleaner, and just sent duvets to get dry clean. Just a disaster. It's been a week and a half, and it's still not. We're still not out of the woods, but anyways, it's all good.
That's a good point. I'm just realizing as you say this that we're October. We're almost mid-October. Winter's coming quickly. I still need to insulate a few things, and there's some stuff I need to do before the winter, which still feels like it's months away, but it's weeks at this point. So I'm gonna make a few notes to myself here. And your listeners to do your do your fall stuff before the winter comes. Yeesh.
Winter is coming.
It came quick. It came quick. So I wanted to roll into, we did get after last, I think it was last episode, we did ask people to comment and to reach out to us and, if they have any questions or anything. So we actually got a fair response. There's a lot of people that did have questions. One guy I do want to personally apologize to, Paul. Paul was a listener who, well, I'm sorry. I don't know if he was a listener. He was a commenter. We'll see if he's a listener after this episode. He commented on YouTube asking about, I'm not sure if now's the right time to buy. Should I buy now or wait or something along those lines? This was weeks ago. And we didn't respond to it, I guess, either there or I'm sure we've talked about that on the show many times, but we didn't talk about it. We didn't directly respond to his comment. So recently there was a promotional ad running on Facebook, just kind of, advertising the show to people that haven't heard of it before. So, in different areas other than Ottawa and so on. And he commented saying, don't bother listening. They don't read any of the comments ever posted on their YouTube page, which I found hilarious because we obviously make a point to read every comment and try to answer them as best we can. But I responded, we responded. I responded.
A little foot and mouth.
I responded being like, well, which comment are you referencing? Because we make a point to actively answer all these questions. And he posted a screenshot of his question from a few weeks ago with no response. So after putting my foot in my mouth, I responded saying, sorry about that. But he did say, the only video that I posted or the only comment on their YouTube page and they didn't respond to it. But I think he meant the only comment on that video. So he doesn't realize there's, 70 plus videos on there. So I think he thought it was the only comment, but I do apologize, Paul. We very much appreciate your comments. And hopefully you actually listen to the show and know what we're talking about. But
it also made it even better that he was able to call us out immediately.
Yes, pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
With photo evidence. I was like, okay. Guess I better respond.
To address that comment though, the original one that we clearly didn't answer directly of when is a good time to buy, whether now, market, prices leveling out, et cetera. Something we've always said and continue to say, don't, overanalyzing, and you don't want analysis paralysis. The best time to buy was yesterday. Next best time to buy is today. Next best after that is tomorrow. Markets do fluctuate. They've leveled off a little bit right now. There's a little bit of, there's extra supply on the market, more listings. You're able to get some conditions, things like that. Now is a good time to buy. You're able to get conditions. You have options. You're able to negotiate prices. You're not going into multiple offers in all properties. So, why delay it as well? If your plan and your goal is to own a property or get into home ownership, there's no sense in delaying for when the market does pick up. And then, for those of you that are then thinking about buying when it's busy, then it'll be, well, I'm not going to buy now. It's too busy. I don't want to compete with other people. Prices are going up, things like that. So, right now is in all of the last 2.5 years, this is the best time to buy right now from what we've seen from even before the pandemic, that this is a more balanced market. right now. That's not to say it's going to be a balanced market in 2 weeks time, 4 weeks time. But right now, if you are thinking of looking at properties or getting into buying, now is a good time to shop.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree 100%. I wanted to actually quickly put my foot in my mouth again. I'm just eating my toes today. We were talking about that unreserved listing, and I had a client member that had reached out. It was listed at 575, and she was asking, what would I have to do to get to that 600 mark? And I said that property we mentioned on the show last week. I said this property is easily going to sell for over 900,000. Like that's just what the comparables are going for, 950, 980, somewhere in that range. And I tuned into the live auction, which was last Tuesday or Wednesday, sometime or like midweek. And I tuned in, and with an hour left in the bidding, the home was still listed at 620. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I might have to refinance my house and try to get in on this bidding situation right now. But then it went up 650, 655, 675, 680, kept going. And what I didn't know, and Greg told us this after the fact, is that every time there's a bid in the last 5 minutes, it resets the clock for another 5 minutes. So it kept getting extended. It ended up selling for 750, which is still very eye-opening to me because, if comparables are sitting in the mid nines, that's still well under what market value should dictate. So I don't know if that's, a sign of where the market is right now, or if that's just an anomaly, but it was very interesting to see that sort of, in quotes, deal come out of that auction.
I think we were, I think we might've been out for dinner together this past week and talking about it, Paul, but I was just saying you had your headset off. I think we were out for dinner this past week and talking about it. I think for this one in particular and other unreserved, if it is something that you're thinking about again, and I do believe there's probably deals to be found on it right now. It's new. There's not a lot of people that are trying it or taking that leap. I don't know what their numbers are, but they're guaranteeing sales. It's not just their properties. They are listing others. And we saw it with the market when it was feverish, is people shying away from multiple offers. If they knew a property was going to go in multiple offers, they shied away. They didn't want to put an offer in. They said, the heck with that. I'm not dealing with that. And I feel like this is potentially the same sort of thing where some of these buyers are like, you know what? I don't want to get into that feverish buying or that pressure, feel like I'm pressured. And so they're shying away. But those that are willing to go in, it's less eyes, on that property, or people will not necessarily less eyes, but less people willing to actually bid on it. Because they're also not sure the process. Their realtor maybe hasn't dealt with it before, or know the process, things like that maybe shies them away. And so I think in the first few, there might be like this one, clearly, some still good deals, especially as the market's kind of leveled out a bit.
Yeah, I wish Greg was here to actually comment on that, because I'd be interested to know, because Greg was saying that there was a lot of agents that were not overly thrilled about the platform itself, and I just wonder if conversations are being had where realtors are actually dissuading their clients from bidding on these sorts of properties, just to to not support the platform. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying, I know Greg isn't doing that, because we've talked to him about his clients actually discussing these with him, but I just wonder if that also is impacting the amount of people that are going in on these, or I'd be interested to know what the conversations, at least in the kind of internal community of realtors, is with these sorts of properties.
For sure. I mean, I think it goes with any industry, that anything new that's disruptive, and whether this is long standing or has legs to it going forward, and it is only in Ottawa right now. I think that there will be people that, there are realtors that are going to be afraid of it, not like it. And, I've seen that by the comments on their posts, like, within the Ottawa Citizen and things like that online. There's a ton of posts by very reputable realtors that I've been very surprised at, very argumentative about it. But people are afraid of disruption. Anything that's going to disrupt the industry that you're within and how you operate, it becomes, people get afraid of that. It's, as opposed to looking to how can I utilize this new technology or new way of doing things in this industry to better myself in this industry, or leverage it and kind of stay on top of things, as opposed to just, trying to stop every little bit of technology or every little new bit of process. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it spreads and what the inside. So we'll have to bring it up next week, and we'll get Greg's take.
I don't remember who. I don't want to steal the thunder on this person's quote, but there is a quote that states that all negativity is stemmed from fear. So I have a feeling that most of those realtors are probably just fearful of the unknown, fearful of the platform that they're not too comfortable with yet. But with that said,
that in our industry, industry though, Paul. We've, as mortgage brokers, there's a lot of technology that keeps coming out that is increasingly that has aspects to it, increasingly so, of artificial intelligence. So AI analyzing an application, kind of making recommendations or knowing what documents are going to be needed, things like that. And this progression of this. And there are, it's certainly more common in the US right now. There isn't, there's one bank in particular in Canada that has an front end app for clients. It has, more AI built in, but there's a lot of mortgage agents and colleagues of ours that are afraid or hesitant. There are, they don't, they kind of shy away, or they're not willing to adopt or even use any aspect of artificial intelligence or any of these softwares because they're afraid that this is going to completely kill their business. And I think it's something where we're not going to be able to stop these types of technologies and these innovative ideas. It's really just learning how that technology or that new way of doing things can help your business and adapting your business to it. And whether that be pivoting to a new niche or leverage, I think that's something that, has always been there from the day of time, whether it was on, from the industrialization or through the technology age like we are in. But just
don't be the blockbuster. You got to you can't dig your heels in. You gotta go with the flow. Don't be the blockbuster.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I did want to read. I got an email actually after one of our last shows from one of our listeners overseas. He's living in China. And he had some questions regarding, well, I'll just read it and we can touch on it because I thought it was really nice for him to reach out. So it says, "Greetings, Paul, all. Maybe you can read and answer this during the next podcast. I listen to the podcast every week and have been since the start. Thank you, Chris, for your fellowship. I was probably one of the original 6 you guys mentioned. Remember I was saying we only had 6 downloads last September? I currently live in China, but after 12 years, we'll be returning back to Ottawa area next year around June. We started looking for houses during our last visit in 2016 and almost purchased a home in Canada for just under $500,000. And now we're kicking ourselves in the ass for not committing. We were supposed to move back early last year, but the world fell apart and then the housing prices skyrocketed." He said, "You don't by any chance have a time machine, do you?" I don't, but talk to Mr. Campbell. He very well might. He's a bit more of a wizard than I am. We honestly don't know what to do. We don't know if we should try to buy while we're living abroad, which seems like way too much work. I'm a Canadian citizen, but my wife isn't. Or should we just wait until next summer to start shopping again? People have been telling me to simply rent a place for a year to readjust to the area and then look for something while renting. Watching these housing prices rise is excruciating. When is the bleeding going to stop? Keep up the good work of the podcast. P.S. I like the banter at the beginning."
Well, appreciate Chris's listening from China, which we apparently this week we are actually ranking in China. He's not the only one in China listening to us. I think a couple of aspects, and the biggest aspect to Chris's question circles around down payment, and what investments or savings you have or capital that you have in order to put into your down payment. Even though you're a Canadian citizen, because you are working and living abroad, you are considered a non-resident, which then the minimum you could put down is 35% as a down payment on a purchase. So regardless if you're a citizen, as soon as you're not considered a non-resident, and you're not filing taxes in Canada, the banks look for you to put a larger amount of down payment down. So with that said, if you have the savings or the investment capital to satisfy that 35%, then it's certainly something you could look at doing now, purchasing while abroad, either rent it out until you move back or what have you to take advantage of the natural appreciation of the market. Alternatively, if that's not the case, then you have to wait until you come back and you have employment here, working locally, and then being able to put as little as 5% down. That's, really it really comes down to what your down payment and kind of really, I think the down payment is the biggest aspect in my mind. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Paul.
No, I mean, it's a very good point. I mean, there's a few pieces of information, like you mentioned, that we kind of have to have in order to properly advise on options. But as far as timing, yeah, I mean, I think you said it. I think you hit the nail on the head there, Dave. I mean, if they're able to come back prior to that, which is probably going to be very challenging. And I mean, China's not exactly Toronto as far as like proximity. So, I would say, it's worthwhile keeping an eye on the market. But my opinion, if you're coming back next June, I would just probably continue to put further money aside to maybe bolster that down payment and then be a bit more aggressive next year when you come back. Because even shopping abroad is very challenging if you can't actually physically go into the space yourself, and you're relying on your real estate agent or whomever to tell you that it's a good investment opportunity. So personally, I think if you're buying a home, you got to be in there, you got to feel it, you got to see if it's actually what you want, because a lot of times things, pictures can look really good, and then you get in there and just the feeling of the space is not what you want to be living in or anything like that. So all money aside, like just from if you're going to be living in this property, in my opinion, I think it's better to actually physically be in there. So if you're able to come back before next June, then I would say it's worthwhile, throwing some numbers around. And even if you have to carry it remotely, if you can come back before next summer, which is, pretty close now, I guess we're only 8 months away. I still feel like it's like August. But if you could come back and say, December of this year, you find a property with some good opportunities and you pull the trigger on it. I mean, I think that wouldn't be a bad idea to just even carry it for that 6 months on your own abroad so that you can have something ready to kind of turn key when you come back. But otherwise, again, like to me, if you're buying a place to live in, you gotta physically be in there and feel it and, walk around the property and actually be, present for that decision. But that's me personally. I know some people can buy, they'll buy in Arizona without, sight unseen and don't care. So, and it's different. I mean, this is a primary home. Obviously you're buying a cottage, you're buying a fishing shack or something, it doesn't really take as much due diligence. But I mean, if you're going to be living in this with your family, I feel like you probably want to take a step in the property first. And that would require you obviously to be here. So,
and I'm the other side of that coin. I'll fire from a distance and I don't need to be in it.
True. That's what I mean. It's all relative. It's all relative.
Yeah. No, I think so. Something for those listeners that would be overseas, aside from obviously, seeing it and physically being able to be in it and see whether it fits for your space, something that's overlooked by people or that they're unaware of. Your residency status, your working status comes into play with regards to down payment and who you're working with as well, or working for, and which country. So if you're working in the US, you can get away with lesser down payment than if you're working in China or Europe or what have you, or Australia, things like that. So there's that aspect. If you're a non-resident, you're a Canadian citizen, non-resident, if you are in the process of moving abroad to anywhere else, I would say, certainly keep any of your credit cards, lines of credit active and open to help continue keeping your Canadian credit alive. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, from a qualifying standpoint, what we do on the mortgage side is we'll look for alternative ways of qualifying your credit. So, we'll look for an international credit bureau. We'll look for 12 months bank statements showing regular payments to a credit card overseas or to a regular utility bill, things like that. A letter from your local bank saying that you're in good standing, things like that. So there are different ways in which alternative credit when you're abroad is defined. But certainly, if you're in this case of Chris looking at maybe moving back and then shopping, something to keep in mind as well is that if you have employment and you're on probation, so typically a probationary period is 3 months, you'll also want to ensure that, you're not just buying something right when you come back and setting a quick closing date, because you'll need to not be on probation for that position as well. So that's something to keep in mind going forward too. So those, if you are living abroad, you have questions, feel free to fire us any emails or, about your individual situation. We can always help you out too.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice, David. We have another comment here touching on the investing side of things, because I think, we often, both on and offline, just in our industry, we get asked often about investment properties. What a lot of people now, especially with the lens that's been kind of shone on the industry over the last couple of years, a lot of people are now thinking, well, I love my home. But if I sell this one, well, then I got to buy another one. So a lot of people are thinking, well, I want to keep my primary home, but I want to kind of invest in something else while the market continues to go up. So we actually had a comment on an episode a couple weeks ago from Wiggity Whack 69 that says, let's get some discussions going around multifamily investing in Ottawa. Why is it lucrative? Interest rates, loan approval requirements, competition versus single family units, maybe a comparison in the Toronto multifamily market, et cetera. So maybe we'll just start at the beginning, but I know, Dave, we talk about this often as far as investment strategies and multi-unit stuff. So maybe you can just explain to people like the difference in qualifying for, say, 4 units and under, 5+, et cetera, just for that comment specifically.
For sure. So multi-residential properties, there's 2 different kind of classifications. You got 4 units and under is considered it'll be financed through your traditional bank as a residential rental mortgage. This is looking at the rental income that property is generating to help offset some of those expenses. But when there's not enough rental income, that's when it's also being qualified based on that borrower's income, their own liabilities, their own expenses, all of that. So that all comes into play when qualifying for a rental property up to 4 units. When you're 5 units and up, this is when you're getting into true multi-residential divisions and type of asset class. When you're 5 units and up, it's a different department. It's more actually a commercial department that you're qualifying, and it's based on the property itself. So you could have a property that is 6 units. You could have it, could be $1 million is what the seller wants for it. And you could have a purchase agreement for $1 million. That's not necessarily what your down payment is going to be based on. 4 units and under, it's 20% is the absolute minimum. And whatever the purchase price is, it's based on 20% of that. On the 5 units and up, it's looking at, you can have the purchase price as $1 million, but maybe it's net income. So gross rents minus expenses gives you your net income. Isn't enough to service a mortgage on it as if you were financing it at $1 million as a purchase price. Maybe that rental, what it can cover, because they look at truly just the asset itself and what revenue it generates and what capacity it has to carry the expenses and liabilities of that property alone. The banks look for a minimum, what's called debt coverage ratio, or amount that rent will cover to the debt. So typically it's 10% higher than what the expenses are. So, or what's considered a 1.1 DCR. So they'll look at the rental income. They'll apply, what that net income can cover for that mortgage and those expenses. And sometimes that isn't going to be that $1 million. They might say, oh, well, the rents it's generating can only carry a mortgage based on $700,000. Well, or that, based on, its numbers, it's valuing the property at 800 and now your down payment is going to be based on that 800, but you have a purchase agreement signed for $1 million. So you could put as little as 15% down when insured through CMHC on multi-residential, but it would be 15% of that 800,000. If you have a purchase agreement signed for $1 million, you're having to come up with that delta, that difference between the 800 and the $1 million. So it's looking at the asset first, and your personal debts, your personal rentals, primary home, all of that is really secondary. They really want to know, and what they look at for qualifying is the property itself, that multi-residential, what income it's generating, where it's located, what its expenses are, what its net operating income is. And that's how it's determining value. And that's how it's determining what loan is going to be lent on that property. So for most, yes, there is, from a competition standpoint, there's more competition in that 4 units and under, because that's more of a straightforward financing and kind of in your residential realm, residential rates for, rental rates, things like that. 5 units and up, you're typically in the higher price point, a little more complicated from a financing and whatnot. There's still strong competition in that market, but there definitely isn't as much as in that 4 unit and under. But it's really just getting to understand, how properties are valued and how they're financed, in order to kind of wrap your head around that 5 unit and up realm.
And I know the next question is going to be, well, what are interest rates like, David? If I'm putting 35% down, what would I be looking at if I bought a 6 unit?
So it really fluctuates. So fixed rates, so rates on multi-residential and rates in general on fixed rates are tied to a bond, Canadian mortgage bond or CMB. It's a publicly traded bond. As bond prices rise, so do your fixed rates. As they drop, your fixed rates drop as well. It's a spread tied to the bond. Commercial or multi-residential, 5-unit and up, the interest rate you get is going to change dependent on whether it's insured. So if it's going through CMHC or not, just like on the residential side, but if it's insured or conventional, what size the loan amount is. So the higher the loan amount, the less your rate is going to be. It's also going to, there's going to be other factors as well. Down payment amount, location. If you're more rural as opposed to the city, there's no real clear cut. It's not like a straightforward, rates are 2.19. That's what you're getting on your multi-res of, 2.19. That's not how it is. Sometimes the rates are less because maybe that loan amount is 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, 100 million. The interest rate is going to fluctuate and change based on different buckets of that loan amount. The lender is going through similar, basically the same underwriting principles and the same amount of time to set up that deal on a 10 million versus a 1 million. So, they'd rather take on those larger loan amounts for a single asset. They're, low risk in the sense that, there's multiple units to offset if there's vacancies and things like that. Property managers, professional property management companies are in place, all of that. And so it'll be a lower rate at a higher loan amount as well. So there's a lot of factors that come into play. On the 4-unit under, it's a straightforward rental, your regular rental rate. So, I think right now, you're on a 5-year variable rate, you're in that 1.5, 1.55 kind of range right now on a 5-year variable. But the multi-res, it's much different.
Yeah, it's interesting this past week that fixed rates have gone up again and variable rates have gone down again. So there's actually an even bigger spread now, almost over 1% for fixed versus variable, at least on the residential side of things. A lot of people also don't know that, we as brokers, we handle, and I'm not saying all brokers do this because, there's a lot of people that are kind of individual agents and have kind of a niche where they focus on just, first-time home buyers or what have you. But as brokers ourselves, we do everything from, your first home to, buying land and developing that land, or, building construction loans, commercial financing, 30 units, 50 units. Like we can basically finance anything that's real estate related, even if it's a development plan. We can have those discussions and we can help you facilitate that. So don't hesitate, to contact us if you have questions. One thing I wanted to touch on too, as far as investment for people that are starting out. So if you don't actually own a home currently, another good way to kind of build that investment right into your purchase is to buy either, a less than 5 units, but buying a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, living in one of the units and renting out the other 3. Cause then you're kind of getting your primary home yourself, but then you also have that, residual kind of income coming from the other units. And also it's worth noting that if you buy a duplex and you live in one of the units, you still only need to put a minimum down payment of 5%. So it's not like you need to come up with that 20 or 35%. You can still put 5% down. If you buy a triplex or fourplex, it bumps up to 10%. But I mean, that's still, if you're going to put down 10% and now you have 3 people paying, basically, once you have a fourplex, you can essentially have the rent covering the cost of the mortgage. So if you buy a fourplex, once you get that 10% in, you're almost mortgage free as far as your monthly payment, because those other rental incomes, if you're picking $1,000 from each of your units on a, $700,000 mortgage, that $3,000 is essentially paying, obviously there's expenses and so on, but as far as the mortgage payment, you can essentially have those other units covering the cost of your loan. So there's lots of good options like that too. So if you are new getting into the market and that's something that you're interested in, if you're interested in the kind of that investment side, you can kind of hit the ground running with that sort of strategy as well. And we can discuss and dive deeper into that if you wanted to reach out, and we can walk you through that process. But anything else, Dave, to touch on from the investing side? I know we could probably have an hour and a half long episode on investing. So for the sake of our listeners,
no, for the sake of time, I think that's a good kind of short summary. I think one thing that you touched on, Paul, of living in one of the units as well, and buying a multi-unit, if you're a first-time home buyer, you don't own, like Paul said, but you have the plans or want to own rental properties or investment properties, certainly, as Paul said, getting a multi-unit where you can live in one unit, rent out the others, it's the power of leverage. Anything in real estate investing is about the power of leverage. It's not, you're not working and saving up that 20% down, going and buying that one property, starting over again, saving that 20% down, buying another property. Most for investors, they're leveraging their existing portfolio. So in this case, getting your first home where it's a multi-unit, or maybe it's a bungalow and you're adding an SDU or a secondary dwelling unit in the basement and converting it into a duplex. You're increasing the value dramatically. You have, like Paul said, that additional rent to offset that property, but then you're refinancing, pulling out that equity because you've bumped the value and now buying another property. And that's kind of what most investors do is, when starting out is getting into a property, getting a rental. Maybe they've saved up that 20%, for the first time, but then getting a property, increasing rents. So turning over maybe the unit, doing some updates, maybe it's a, property that needs some updates, get higher rents, bump the value that way, refinance, get it reappraised, refinance, pull that equity out to then leverage to buy another property, rinse and repeat. So you're really only saving that initial 20% down as opposed to 20% each property that you go through. And that's really what most investors are doing. Anyone that you talk to that has multiple rental properties, it's 9.9 times out of 10, they haven't saved up the down payment from after tax dollars to then go and buy one rental, save up after tax dollars to then go buy another rental. They're pulling the equity out, just tax free, leveraging that equity, letting the market build that value for them. But like you said, Paul, we could definitely have a 10-hour tore up special on just investing alone, but maybe we'll break it out. And I know there'll be a lot of questions that come from the show to possibly elaborate on things. So please fire questions and we'll kind of take those snippets and condense it down from 10 hours into multiple 5-minute bites.
But I wanted to touch on something you said there, because it's oftentimes you have people that aren't in the industry that see, people with, let's say 10 investment properties or something, and they assume that those people are just extremely wealthy. And I mean, obviously, the plan is to be that in a few years, but these people are not buying these properties cash. You know what I mean? Like they're leveraging the investments they already have to take the equity to reinvest it into other properties. So, you get a little bit of equity in one property, you take that, you invest in another one, get a little equity there, you invest in another one. So it's a gradual process. It's not something where people are just buying, handing $1 million cash to someone and be like, I'm going to sit on this for 10 years. I mean, it's a strategy to invest in it and build the equity and then do it over again, right? It's a rinse and repeat, not a, one and done per se. So, all right. Should we slide in the mood boost, David?
Let's do it. I know
we're missing our minute to win it listing here, unfortunately, today, but it'll be back next week. So I got 3 today. First one, number 1. What happens when the butcher laughs too hard? He collapses.
Wow.
He collapses.
Wow.
Number two. What did one campfire say to the other? Let's go out one of these days.
Wow. Okay.
And number 3, I think you'll like this one. What foods are especially good for young people? The proteins. The proteins.
Oh. All right.
Stephen, what are your thoughts on those?
I'm like a 0.5. I'm like a 0.5 out of 3, I think. On
I'm gonna add one. We actually had one of our new agents actually sent us one by email yesterday. What sound? Very Thanksgiving related. What sound does a turkey's phone make? Wing wing.
That one brings you up to 1.5 out of 4.
All right.
Say yeah. Very timely.
Thank you, everyone, for putting up with David and I for the last, I don't even know how long. And we just want to say thanks again to North Brew, our coffee sponsor. northbrew.ca. If you go to northbrew.ca and use the promo code podcast, they'll give you 20% off all of your coffee orders. And to all our listeners, thank you, as always. We look forward to your comments and your suggestions on future episodes. Otherwise, we will be back next week. As always.
Make sure you like, subscribe, share. Now help get those numbers up.
Yeah.
We appreciate you all.
We appreciate you all. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next time. Adeuces.
The Ottawa Real Estate Podcast is brought to you by Referral Mortgages, Blue Panda Realty, and Stephen Hopkins Video. Thanks for tuning in, and please remember to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. We'd love to hear from you.